coming to the end of our conference day. That is why here is my another colleague, Vasili Braga, who is ready to share with you some experiences of interactive storytelling. Loud applauses to him.
Hey, thank you a lot for being here. At the end of the day, it's not so simple, and let's speak a little bit about the interactive storytelling. It's a course like I'm reading it at the university, and for you, I'll try to explain what I'm explaining, in one semester to put it together for an hour. Um, for the first thing we need to understand, like what's interactive storytelling? Let's start with interaction. This is a problem because a lot of people understand interaction like reaction, and it's not like this. Like you're not, it's a reciprocal action. Like you are starting, you are doing something, the world is changing, and the world have to change you back. The world is changing you back, and you repeatedly are doing something to change the world. It's a cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. It's not only the thing that you are trying to change something and it's changing. This is very important to understand and to go by, because based on this, you'll understand games differently. The games or interactive stories are actually nothing without the user, only together with them. Okay, and what's the story? Like interaction is clear. Two things, very important things. The stories are not about the action, but about the reason for the action. And actually the story about the people. They ask how they are changing and what they are doing. Yes, then speaking about interactive storytelling, we have stories and changing cycles. Why this is important? Why this started back in 1992? Because the stories were becoming very, very costly. It's the prices for the entertainment started to raise up. And the possibility to do a story, but to serve with the same content the user like a toy, to build a game for himself, the story. This was at the base of all that is storytelling, interactive storytelling about. One more thing, but we need to understand, like for the linear psychological narrative, we need to make two things, like to catch the user, and after to make him willingly to have a suspension of disbelief. Someone understand what's a suspension of disbelief? Yeah. Then you are reading a book, a fantastic book, science fiction or fantasy, and you are not having any problem in your immersion, even if you are reading very strange things about the story, about the world, and about all what is around you. For this suspension of disbelief, in order to this suspension of disbelief to take place, it's very important to have one simple thing: a contract with your audience. What's significant? What's the contract about? At the beginning of the story, the author needs to say very clear, this about this, and this. Like, let's start a bit. This story will be like about this, this, and this. Until the end, you need to sign this contract and work with your audience and go step by step further. Like, very boring and simple stuff. You have in the storytelling, like contingency, narrative representation, interactivity, and presence. This is simple, and let's take a look at these four. Like for cinema, you have low contingency, narrative representation, none is visual, presence is non-physical, and you have no interactivity. It's practically the same with the theater, but say me please, why the theater can be interactive? Someone? How a theater can be interactive? And most simple way, the audience can like say something to the players, throw something at the, the players, because you can actually give a feedback to the players and the actors on the stage. And literature, you have no interactivity, but you have a very important thing. The representation, narrative representation, is mental. And I think in game, you have not only visual representation, but mental too. Speaking about meta games, all the meta games are in your mental representation. Okay, a little bit of more boring stuff, where we have the degree of interactivity. We have some examples here. What we need to understand, like the most important for what we'll say further, we have a non-participant influence, like forum theater or God simulators, where you changing the environment, you actually are changing the life. Branching narrative, like you know, all interactive novellas are here, and freely participating characters, like any emergent narrative, like Sims, like so. Some examples that it's not about only the game, like inventing and telling stories. Some live action, theater, tour guiding, teaching. Like I'm reading the same slides for like 3 or 4 years, but each time this lecture is absolutely different, because I'm interacting with you. If the audience is more passive, I have less feedback and I'm telling more. And this story about me telling about telling and explaining the lecture is every time something different. Okay, we have the classical narrative forms like epic, epistemic, and dramatic. And each of them have some pro and con when you are going to make them interactive. Like the epic form is very common and very simple. Like all the quests in your games are actually some accomplishment of your mission, and it's used pretty all the time. Epistemics is like started to be used also like Hopa and all the game like about detectives and things like this also have a good history. But the dramatic part is absolutely complicated, and it's most difficult to implement, because the drama are not about the people, but about the relation. In order to make the relation changes, in order to make the people changing under the relation, you need to have relation arcs and people arcs, and the people need to be believable and it's becoming more and more complicated. Now, with the rising of the AI, I think the dramatic form have actually will be some progresses here. I think this is the most important slide in all this lecture. The story is starting to have three partakers, three pylons, and each of them are very important. It's the author, is the characters, and the end user. Like we speaking about the story, we all speak mostly about the author-driven stories, like branching narratives and things like this, writing something and branching the narratives and going point by point every time. But I think one of the most important kind of a story is about their characters. Then you are creating life simulation things. When you have characters, you are putting them together you are putting them knowing that they have some problems between them, when they have less resources what we need for survival. And now the story will emerge through the conflict of characters. And finally, the end user. This is so important, but I'll try to ask. Someone from you understand the difference between a toy and a game? What's the difference between a toy and a game? Yeah, yeah. Okay, some examples. Give me an example. Mhm. Good. Now, from my point of view, the most important and the most like cool toy, it's a ball. You can do like thousands of games using a ball because the ball is universal and you can use it whatever you want. Yeah, you can do football, you can do basketball, you can do polo, nothing. And the toys need to be interesting to play with. Yeah, and the end user needs to have a toy in order for him to be interesting to play. And your world, like the old building, is actually the world is the toy that you need. How to do it right? I think we have these responses mostly in all the sandboxes. All the sandboxes give you the possibility to use the world like a toy. And why I'm putting here the wine drawers? Because actually it's not only live simulation, interactive novella, or sandboxes. You can do whatever you want. You can put a little bit of more of authoring, less characters, and a little bit of world building, and you'll create your own story. Yeah, this is what I said about. This is very simple, and actually it will help you to understand how the story will be built. You have now, based on these like 3 strategies, having an author-centric approach. You need to do explicit authoring, like write and explain how to go from this branch to another and go step by step. Same thing with the character-centric. You need to describe the characters and describe the world and put them there and let them have their conflict and from the conflict will emerge the story, the actual story. The character-centric storytelling is not only for live simulation game. You saw a lot of television shows based on this. And this is used, like you actually have no scripts. You have no scenarios. You put them, you plan the problems, you plan the conflicts ahead, and you'll have the implicit creation of the story. And the world-centric, like we spoke about, is more sandbox-like things. Okay, a little bit about the characters, what you need to understand. What's a character from point of view of a programmer for you? It's an intelligent, believable agent. What's an agent? What's a believable, intelligent agent? It's very important. Like, what's the difference between an agent and a group of code? Agent have the inputs and the outputs and a little bit of a brain himself. It needs to have a possibility to take their own decision. Okay, it's good for the for programmable part, but what's a believable agent? What's a believable character? It have nothing to do with reality. Believable, it's not realistic. A lot of things that we think are realistic, we still don't believe it. Why? Because our brain have like some biases, some patterns working with. And we need to be very, very confident that we understand the patterns like we are using. Good. What are the features that we are looking for? Personality. What's the personality from your point of view? Someone? Backstory is good. What's the difference between an agent with personality from an agent without any personality? An agent without any personality will change its behavior. Then you'll change them from one place to another. You'll change the environment, and the agent will change his behavior, its behavior. But an agent with personality will continue to do same things in different environments because the personality will motivate from inside to make something. Like you need to have a personality. How you'll do this? Through values, chain of values, something like this. I'm not so sure. Like I'm doing through biases, traits, character traits, and things like this. Emotion. How do you do the emotion? You can have a list. I'm doing through artificial endocrine system. Like I put him inside 3 or 4 different hormones, and they are changing. Why this approach is better? You don't have the abrupt change from one state of emotion to another. This is going step by step, and it's fluid. And self-motivation. Yeah, they need the agents need to have self-motivation, to have desire and drives. You have no agents without social relationship. But what's social relationship? You cannot have social relationship without having a society. Without having social roles. Like in your world building, you need actually to create the roles for this and create the society. And they struggle to go from one role to another or to fit better in their role. And this need to be a part of the storytelling. And absolutely yes, illusion of life, multiple goals, broad capabilities, and quick reaction. What are doing the author? The main thing that an author needs to do is to deliver the content for someone experience. Now, I have one more question I'll try to explain. The story is not in the book. The story is actually in your mind. You are recreating the story here, and the author don't need to think about the story in the book like being the only one. The author need to think about the story in the head of your user. And it can be different because, you know, the user will have its own experience, his own experience, or her own experience. And in order to do this, you need to understand very well your target audience. You need to understand what are driving them, what are their values. And only after this, you'll be writing a good story for your target audience, knowing that you are actually changing something on them in their minds, not in the book and not in your game. One more thing. How do you think? Minecraft have a storytelling or not? A story? Yes. And what's the story in Minecraft? I'll tell my story. Like, I created a castle from glass and lava, and it was very beautiful. And the creeper, like, exploded like near to my castle. You understood what's the story about. Anyone have the possibility to create their own story, and you, like a author, need to think about these kind of stories too, about the emerging stories. And these are stories too, not only the like branching stories. And how to do it? How do you think? Planting the possibilities in the world, planting these possibilities of conflicts in the environment and in the bots like NPCs. I was speaking about this contract. This is like, you cannot do like change what's the game about or what's the story about. If in the beginning you say like the story it's about, it will be this interactive storytelling thing, it will be about, it will be a roguelike and things like this, and you need to be perseverant with this. And speaking about the world building, each time I think you need to have in mind like what would change in your story, in your world? What is changeable? What will remain the same? And how do you make these things? Like through what kind of user interface or what abilities to do this? And the last thing about this story, where is the place of the artist or author in this story? Like, it's up to you. What do you think? Oh, very, very nice. Like, you are being now ethical and think like this, and but a lot of authors and creators, content creators, are trying to put some of their thoughts in the game, on the book, like doing propaganda from games, any kind of propaganda, even if for good. And I think it's not ethic in any kind. This, you need to be thinking only about the feelings of your user and helping him to have a good time and be excited and not more. I'm more like a helper. The author needs to be a helper, like will help the user to have a good time, no more. Now, a little bit of forms of interactive entertainment. You know, this is all games. Now, if we are trying to do a lot of them with AI, we are creating like hypertext fiction. I was writing some papers on this, like I put together Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates to speak about the nature of reality and actual, and it was like very interesting. I'd like for you to understand that AI will change a lot, like generative AI will change a lot of the stories. And it's already working. These are the uses. And this narrative thinking, from my point of view, needs to be the way you are building the story. One more time, the story is situated in the head or in the mind of your reader. Now, you trying to modify its or his or her experience. And what's more important, the user, in order to be a part of this, in order to emerge, need to have autobiographical memory and stories about himself, herself. This is why I asked about Minecraft. Can Minecraft have a story? Absolutely yes, because through this narrative thinking, the memory, your memory, and what you are saying and you are translating and telling to other people about your experience about the game is becoming a story, even more important than the story what is in the game. The story what you'll say and you'll tell to someone. About the immersion, I think we all know, like we have a spatial inversion, a temporal, and emotional. Now we are working with all of them. It's very complicated to have a real spatial immersion, but because of the new technologies, it's becoming easier and easier. The temporal one is, you know about cliffhangings, like reading and wanting to know what will be after. If you'll do this, you'll buy your audience, because the curiosity is one of the drivers of humanity. Make your users curious. And emotional. We like to like have emotion, to feel something. How to do it? Make relations with your user. Make him be happy for someone and achieve something not so more complicated. Let him be have these emotions. And now I'll explain actually how the conventional narrative, like reading, what's a conventional, like reading a book. Now, we are reading a book. We have an author, constructed a story, presented the story, and the spectator or the reader had this experience of this story. But for you to understand, it's a big difference between the constructed story and experienced story. And I'll explain you why. Someone from you read the book 2 times in his life. Any book 2 times, like The Little Prince. 3 times I read it. And I had absolutely different experiences at different times reading this. Why is this? Because of some, I don't know if you know about Derrida, about the deconstruction of text of Derrida. Like, the books are more like a programmer code. And you are feeling this code with your experience. And the story is all the same. Like, you are reading instructions and knowing something about you, having some experience, you are trying to fulfill and create your story. And these will be different stories. Now, this has become even more complicated. You have the author. The author have the possibility to create the characters, create the environment, and register the external events. And user will give inputs. Now the story have all three partakers. And it will emerge only through the interaction of the users with the environment, with characters and external events. And actually, you have no clue, actually, what will be the final experience of of your user. It's a good thing, because only in this way you'll have replayability. And replayability, it's more time than more money. It's all about being money. Yeah, of course, we have a lot of problems with interactive drama, with interactive stories, like the temporal management of the action. How you make that the narrative remain interesting. In order for the narrative to remain interesting, you need to have drama in this. But you are giving choices to your user. How do a normal user, will try to make not the hardest choice for drama to steal. And you'll have less drama in your story, then you'll give all the choices to your user. Yeah, the multimodal representation, it's not so good yet. Speaking about interpreting player actions, I'm more speaking about the intentions. How do you know what your user wanted to do? And what do you know to do in order to understand not only the actions, but the intention of the user? Now, we are using large language models to understand from the context the intentions of the user. And it helps a lot, even to categorize and interpret. And where should be the artist? Yeah, and simple things. We have the same themes like betrayal, earning, love, revenge, etc. for thousands or tens of thousands of years. Nothing changed here. But anyhow, you need the user will read. Someone will tell me what's the reason why we love story, why the stories, and why the kids love the tales, like the old tales, very frightening and things like this. Good. To have, it's a safe way to have the experience like you will not have in any other way. It's not interesting to have stories about you, what you can feel and know and outside. The stories are the most important about the things like you are not so sure what you want to try, but it's better to have this experience like now. And this is why you have the same themes like betrayal, earning love, and different environments, and this is cool. It's nothing bad with this. Like, just use them. Yeah, the story must remain dramatically compelling. It's very complicated to do this, and it's like balancing on the edge each time, and not all the people actually manage to do this. You need to have strong, autonomous characters. Like I like a lot to read Stephen King's novellas. But Stephen King actually have no plot lines. His plot lines are horrible. Like this is why not all the movies of Stephen King even it's possible to do this movie because of the faulted plot line. But the characters are very interesting, and how you have the arcs, and how they are changing, and how they are becoming monsters on saviors. It's all very interesting. And personalization. Each characters need to have an interaction, a real interaction with you, and if you stole from one character something, it needs to be remaining on his history, and actually biographical history, and actually needs to change its behavior towards you. We have only 2-3 minutes more. We have R&D challenges, yeah, like agency. I'm working a lot now to give the possibility to the player to actually change something and have a good story after this. The generation, the real-time generation of the content. One of my projects is survival generation. It's for the kids from the university. We need to create from zero through generative AI, using like stable diffusion and large language models, a world. Only, and each time the world have to be different. It's like quite interesting. It's quite interesting. And yes, the interfaces, the UI, UX all change all the time. It's nothing here. This is simple too. And the last slide, very important one. The narrative paradox is about what the pre-authored structure, like the text having an author, conflicts with the freedom of action or freedom of choice. If you give too much choice, the story will be not dramatically compelling. If you give no choice, you'll have actually no replayability. And what is actually a true successful game or interactive story? is the possibility to solve this paradox for one game. You cannot do it for all the games. You don't have actually a solution, a general solution. You need to find a solution for your own game. And having the same plot, the same environment, and the same things, two games can be one of them resolving this narrative paradox, another one not. Like, this is all. If you have questions, please.
Okay, so maybe I have a question from myself.
Okay.
For some game development companies, user experience is not always a priority. So, from your point of view, what should game development companies pay attention on the profit side or on the user experience side?
Actually, the profit side. Interactive storytelling, it's all about profit. It's not about, yeah. I'll explain one more time. I started this. Their content became expensive. You want to use the same content a lot of times in order to give more gameplay time and things like this. And through this interactive storytelling, you can actually give a toy to the user to create their own stories, and they will have more gameplay time and will pay you more. It's all about money.
I see. Thank you. Any other questions?
So you said by using generative AI to make text for games, we probably in one point of time can get to infinite game. We
Absolutely.
create one product like it would be nearly the simulation of our reality. So will it print infinite money, or will it something next in our game development society?
Okay. Actually, I think so. I'm like in the same mood, and I think the same like you. You'll have a game generator, not a game. You'll buy game generators, not game, and you'll mostly explain what kind of game you want to play. But the most important thing that we need to understand about the game, like the reality is more complex, and we don't want to play in reality. We need games because the games are simpler and are explaining things. Like, I don't think a very complex virtual reality will serve well for entertainment. It will be like same thing like working all the day. You're not interested in do this. The games are about entertainment, about education, about new skills, not about working hard all the time around. Nothing will change. Then, thank you.
Yep. Let's thank you, Vasily.